you know whether your retirement plan is on track, or are you simply hoping it is? Hi, I'm Rob West. Whether retirement is years away or just around the corner, it's wise to pause and take a closer look at your plan. Today we'll walk through a retirement checkup, what numbers to know, what assumptions to test, and how to think biblically about the season ahead. And then it's on to your calls at 800-525-7000. This is Faith and Finance Live, biblical wisdom for your financial journey. Well, many people know they should be saving, but they're less certain whether they're saving enough. That's where a checkup can help. Sometimes you need to catch problems early and make adjustments before small issues become major ones. So first, know your retirement savings target. No single rule of thumb fits everyone. Your goal depends on when you retire, how long you live, your lifestyle, your health, your generosity goals, and whether you'll have income from Social Security, a pension, rental property, or part-time work. But as a starting point, one common benchmark is to aim for around 10 to 12 times your income by age 67. The point isn't to become discouraged if you're behind. The point is to know where you stand. Second, know your retirement spending number. This may be even more important than your savings balance. $1 million can be plenty for one household and not nearly enough for another because spending determines how much income your portfolio must produce. Start with your current budget, then adjust for what may change. Will the mortgage be paid off? Will travel increase? Will transportation costs go down? Will you support adult children or aging parents? Will you downsize, relocate, or stay where you are? That gives you a clearer picture, not just of what retirement may cost, but what kind of stewardship this next season may require. Third, know your withdrawal plan. A common guideline has been the 4% rule, first developed by financial planner William Bengen. He has since updated his research, suggesting the number may be closer to 4.7% with a more diversified portfolio. Fidelity describes it more broadly as a 4 to 5% sustainable withdrawal range. So if you retire with $500,000, you might begin by withdrawing around $20,000 or $25,000 in the first year, then adjust over time. This is not a guarantee, and it does not mean that you'll never touch the principal. Your actual withdrawal rate should depend on your age, health, investment mix, inflation, market conditions, and whether essential expenses are covered by guaranteed income. The danger is assuming you can pull 8%, 10%, or even 12% from your portfolio every year without consequences. For most retirees, that's not a plan, it's a countdown. Fourth, prepare for healthcare costs. Medicare is a blessing, but it doesn't cover everything. You may still have premiums, deductibles, copays, prescriptions, dental, vision, and hearing costs, and long-term care is a separate issue altogether. Recent estimates suggest that a 65-year-old retiring today may need well over $170,000 for healthcare costs throughout retirement, and that doesn't include long-term care. For a married couple, that becomes a major planning item. Fifth, understand Social Security. For many retirees, Social Security will be one of the largest sources of guaranteed income. You can claim benefits as early as age 62, but doing so can permanently reduce your monthly benefit by as much as 30%. Delaying past full retirement age until age 70 can increase your benefit by 8% for each full year you wait, up to 24% if your full retirement age is 67. Of course, delaying isn't always the right answer. Health, family history, income needs, marital status, and work plans all matter, but it's worth looking carefully before making a permanent decision. Sixth, review your investment allocation. As you approach retirement, your portfolio may need to become more conservative, but that doesn't mean moving everything to cash. Retirement may last 20 or 30 years, and inflation can quietly erode purchasing power over time. Finally, remember that retirement is not the end of stewardship. Psalm 92 says the righteous still bear fruit in old age. That's a richer vision than simply withdrawing from work and responsibility. Retirement is not about drifting, it's about faithfulness in a new season. So yes, check the numbers, know your savings target, build a realistic spending plan, prepare for health care, understand Social Security and review your investments, but also ask, Lord, what fruit do you want to grow in this season of my life? By the way, a certified Kingdom advisor can help. Just go to findacka.com. We'll be right back.
The opinions offered during this program represent the personal or professional opinions of the participants, given for informational purposes only. Any information provided is not intended to replace advice from a financial, medical, legal, or other professional who understands your specific situation.
Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Well, we're taking your calls and questions today at 800-525-7000. Again, that number is 800-525-7000. We've got some lines open today. We'd love to hear from you. We're ready to dive in, so call right now. Let's begin in Miami. John, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I called on. Yeah, I called you before, Mike. Like in 2020, get into a house. Now I'm calling about the church in regard to some church property.
Yes,
we
sir.
have two pieces, one the sanctuary and one property across the street. I have a warranty deed. It's in the church name, and the church is incorporated. I am the president, and we have a vice president. And so we want to know the steps, how to go about selling it, because we really wanted to try to fix it up, but it's only a few of us in the church, and it's kind of going down into some bad condition. And so I don't think that we're going to be able to do anything with it. So the church asked that I try to, figure out how to do this here.
Yeah. Are you affiliated with a denomination?
Yes, I am a Baptist, but no union or anything like that there. New
Okay,
St. James,
got
that's
it.
the name of the church, New St. James Missionary Baptist Church.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so there's additional denominational requirements if the church is affiliated with a larger denomination, but doesn't sound like that applies here. The key is to make sure the church follows both its governing documents and, of course, state law. So it's not just a matter of signing a deed. You've got to have proper authorization. So generally, you would start by reviewing your bylaws and articles of incorporation to determine who has the authority to approve the sale. And then you would you would adapt or adopt a formal resolution through the governing board or congregation if that's required by the bylaws, and the bylaws should spell that out on how you adopt a formal resolution. And then you'd document the approval in the meeting minutes for the board of the corporation. You would have the appropriate officers sign the warranty deed. You mentioned you're the president, you have a vice president, and so forth. You'd want them to sign the deed in accordance with the bylaws. And then I would recommend using a real estate attorney or a title company that's familiar with church property transactions. They would help to prepare and record the deed and ensure that all the legal requirements are met. But basically, you got to start by reviewing those bylaws and articles of incorporation, then adopt the formal resolution, document the approval in the meeting minutes, and then have the officer sign the warranty deed.
Okay, so when you say warranty deed, right, because I guess like the one that I have in front of me right now, that I guess was a prior for that has the church name on it and whoever sold it to the church. This would take another warranty deed, a fresh new warranty deed that's need to be made out of something like that, or what? If that make any sense? Because the one I have is from 1995.
Yeah, the existing warranty deed is the document that proves the church owns the property, so you don't need a new warranty deed just because you're selling it. The current deed, which stays in the chain of title as evidence that the church acquired the property, and when the church sells the property, the church executes a new warranty deed or whatever type of deed is agreed upon from the church to the buyer. And then that new deed is signed by the officers authorized by the church's bylaws, and then that's what's recorded with the county. Does that make sense?
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. One more thing before I get off. I don't even know how to say this to you, but just not to get like ripped off or anything like that. There's these commercials that says cash offer and no fees, no bank, no repairs, no commission. Would you stay away from things like that there? Just asking, because it comes up in a commercial.
You're talking about for the church or for a personal residence?
For the church, it might be for a personal resident. Just the way the commercial, I read it,
Yeah. No, I would stay away from that. These companies can be legitimate, but they offer the speed of the exchange at a discount. And so the convenience and the speed comes with a cost. That doesn't make them bad, but it just means you usually are trading some of the property's value for a quicker, simpler sale. So I wouldn't go that direction. I'd want to maximize the value of the church upon the sale. So the way to do that is to get multiple offers, get an independent market valuation, compare the net proceeds after commissions and closing costs, not just the purchase price, and really have an attorney review the purchase agreement before signing. And I would not go with these cash offer options.
Right. So the market value and the land value, how do they differ? I mean, because 2025, it was like $169K, and then the market value saying 2025 was $253K.
Yeah. Well, market value and land value are two different things. Market value is what the entire property is worth in today's market. The land plus any buildings or improvements. The land value is simply what the vacant land itself is worth without considering the church building, the parking lot, any other improvements.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. You answered it. You helped me out. So,
absolutely.
I go that route right there. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Man.
Yeah, and in terms of the new deed, the new warranty deed, it's typically going to come from either the closing attorney, which is most common in attorney closing states, or the title company, or the buyer's real estate attorney. The deed's going to be drafted using the legal description from the existing deed, and it's going to name the church as the seller, the buyer, which is the grantee, the new owner. And then when the authorized church officers sign it and have it notarized, again, according to the bylaws, then it's going to be recorded with the county after the closing. And again, you're going to want a real estate attorney involved or a title company just to make sure that everything is being done appropriately. Okay.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Mike.
All right. Thank you for your call today, John. God bless you. 800-525-7000 is the number to call. We got a few lines open. We'd love to hear from you today as we tackle what you're thinking about in your financial life and helping you think about it in light of biblical wisdom. Again, that number, 800-525-7000. In just a moment, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll dive into additional phone calls. We'll also be talking to Jerry Boyer in our final segment. We'll get an update on what's happening with regard to inflation, a new inflation readout, and it's above 4%. And that's even when you strip out energy prices. It's still above 4%. So we'll get Jerry's take on that. What does that mean for our economy? What does it mean for interest rates? Also, Jerry out speaking today on corporate engagement and proxy voting with the Heritage Foundation. We'll get an update on some of what's going on there as it relates to the Securities and Exchange Commission and their thoughts on corporate engagement. That's coming up in our final segment today. But when we come back, we'll take more of your questions. Again, that number, 800-525-7000. This is Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. We'll be right back. So glad to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. I'm Rob West. Let's head right back to the phones. Nashville, Tennessee. Lori, go ahead.
Hi, Rob. Happy Friday. I have an RMD from my Timothy Plan account that I want to have deposited to a charitable giving fund, but Timothy Plan doesn't have a charitable giving fund. And I was wondering, there's a company that you mentioned on previous programs that will take the RMDs or investments, and people can, divvy out or distribute to charities as they wish. I don't have that name of the company. Do you recall?
Yeah. So are you thinking maybe a donor-advised fund? Does that sound familiar?
Maybe that's it. Yes, that may.
It would probably have been the National Christian Foundation that I was talking about, but a required minimum distribution can't be satisfied. Well, I take that back. You can satisfy an RMD with a qualified charitable distribution, but not to a donor-advised fund. The IRS does not allow qualified charitable distributions to be made to a donor-advised fund. It has to go straight to a ministry. And so a donor-advised fund would be where you'd put it in a fund, you get the deduction when the money goes in, and then you can distribute it over time by granting it out, through their website or over the phone. But there's a specific carve-out with a qualified charitable distribution that it has to go directly to the ministry. It can't go through a donor-advised fund. So unfortunately, if that's what you're thinking about, that would not be an option. Instead, what you would have to do is have whoever the custodian is for that IRA, have them cut the check directly to the charity and just send the money. You mentioned the Timothy Plan. So is this an IRA where Timothy Plan is the custodian? Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I don't want the whole RMD, so I want to have a portion of it sent to different charities, but I don't know if they would be willing to do individual checks. But you were right. I was thinking about the donor advised fund, and you just corrected me on that I can't do that. But yes, Timothy Plan, and I don't know I don't know if they would accommodate me having like 10 different charities, whether they, I don't know what kind of work is involved there.
Yeah, it's really up to the IRA custodian, and I'm not familiar with those services. I'm very familiar with the Timothy Plan mutual funds, but I'm not familiar with their services where they're actually also acting as the custodian of the IRA. A lot of times people will have an IRA at Fidelity or Schwab, and then they'll invest in Timothy Plan. But if they're also acting as the custodian of the IRA, then they're the ones that would have to generate the checks and send the funds directly from your IRA to a qualified charity. If they're willing to serve as your custodian, which it sounds like they are, then they should be also willing to cut those checks, whether it's 1 or 10. But I would just let them know that you'd like to do qualified charitable distributions. You're going to give them the name of the charities, and you'd like for them to send the funds directly to those charities. And then you're going to be able to acknowledge that on your tax return that, yes, these were distributions from your IRA, but they are not taxable because they were qualified charitable distributions. And that also is going to satisfy your required minimum. So I think your next step here, Lori, is to give Timothy Plan a call and just kind of talk them through what you're wanting to do.
Okay. But remind me again, the National Christian, what was it?
Foundation.
Advice.
Yeah, so it's ncfgiving.com is the website, and it stands for National Christian Foundation, ncfgiving.com.
Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
All right, Lori, and you as well. Thanks for calling. 800-525-7000, the number to call, and let's head to Florida. Carolyn, go ahead.
Hi, how you doing? This is my second time on. I just wanted to know, I'm a Christian, and I'm a faithful tither. I don't just tithe. I'm a faithful tither. But now I'm drawing my Social Security, and my husband passed 5 years ago, so I'm drawing my Social Security and his. And I get pretty good money, and I tithe off it, but people say I don't supposed to tithe off of that because it's already been, I don't know.
Yes. It's a great question, and it does come up a lot. In fact, it comes up so often that we decided to write an entire article on this in the latest issue of Faithful Steward, our magazine. And so I'm going to send you a copy when we're done because I'd love for you to read it. It's in the brand new summer edition of Faithful Steward that just came out to our partners. It's called Tithing in Retirement, a Thoughtful Framework. And basically what we unpack in there is this idea that Social Security is partly a return of payroll taxes you already paid while working. So if what these friends are getting at in their response to you is that if you tithed from your gross income during those years, you may decide you've already given from that money. Now, if you did or not, you simply might want to honor the Lord from what you receive now and give a percentage back to the Lord. Some people either just see 100% of what they're getting from Social Security as a gracious gift from the Lord, and they just continue tithing on it. Others see a portion of that as a return of what they've already paid in, and a portion as the growth. And there's no way to know exactly how that breaks down, because it's ultimately going to come down into what did you pay into Social Security during your working years, and then it's going to be a function of how long you live. The longer you live, the more you're going to get the growth component versus the portion that you've already paid in. So I think a nice way to think about it that's fairly simple is just to think about half of it as a return of what you've already paid in and tithed on, and the other half as the growth component. And maybe that half is the portion that you do another tithe on. So whatever that Social Security check is, cut it in half, give a tenth, and that'll be the portion that's considered growth. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. And I'm not a person who's trying to get out of it, because I've been doing it since my husband passed. And before he passed, over 40 years of marriage, we always tithe. So
I love it.
I'm doing it wrong. So
well, there's not a wrong decision here, and you may want to do it on the whole thing. And if you did, I think that's wonderful. Don't look back. If you wanted to do it on half, do that. It's between you and the Lord. Hey, stay on the line here, Carolyn. We're going to send you a copy of this magazine so you can read the article. We'll be right back. Thanks for joining us today on Faith and Finance Live. Let's head right back to the phones and head to Chicago. Tanya, how can we help?
How you doing, Mr. Rod?
I'm good.
Yes, sir. This is a question. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I have to ask. So I pay tithes, but I wanted to know, is it a sin? Been paying for over 40 years. It's not the issue, but I want to know this. If I wanted to take part of my tithes and give it to another organization that's contributing to my spiritual life, they may not be a part of my church, just like an organization. I'll just use your organization for an example, or St. Jude or whatever.
I like you using my organization. That's a great idea.
Yes, sir. I know you never try to promote yourself, though.
I'm just kidding.
Yes, sir. I know. I've been listening to you for years, so I know your style. But here's the thing. I just wanted to know, because my financial stability is very important to my spiritual life, and I found that out through Faith Finance. So is it a sin if I give part of my tithes to an organization as opposed to giving it to another physical church, if that makes sense?
It is. It does make sense, and it's a great question. And we actually did a deep dive on the tithe in issue 3 of Faithful Steward. John Cortines wrote a fabulous article called Tithing, A Fresh Look at an Ancient Practice. And when we're done here today, I'm going to have my team get your information. We're going to send you Faithful Steward issue 3. But let me just kind of talk you through some thoughts here. Number one, we absolutely, as believers, should give generously. The New Testament does not command believers to pay a mandatory 10% tithe as a requirement before the Lord. The Old Testament tithe was part of Israel's covenant life. It supported the Levites. It was a part of temple worship. There was a part that was care for the vulnerable. There was even a part that was related to celebration, where they were able to celebrate God's provision. And so I would say in Christ, giving is described as willing, it's worshipful, it's proportional, but it's also cheerful. It's even sacrificial. Here's what I think the most clear passage from the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians says, 2 Corinthians 9:7, each one must give as he has decided in his heart to give, for God loves a cheerful giver. That said, I think 10%, the tithe, and that's what tithe means, it means a tenth, can still be a wise and helpful starting point for many Christians, not as a legal burden, but as a training ground for trust and generosity and putting God first and a proportionate gift as God provides. Now, to the heart of your question, can donations count as tithes if they don't go to the local church? I would say it depends on how your church tradition defines tithe. Many churches teach that the first and primary giving should support the local church's ministry, while additional giving to charities is really offerings. Others use tithe more broadly to refer to giving to God's work, which could include ministries and charities. So I think a faithful approach is, yes, start with your local church. That's God's plan A. And it's a way that we, advance the gospel, support spiritual leaders, and reflect the Levitical tithe, which was clearly a part of the Old Testament system. But I also say that a faithful approach to giving goes beyond the tithe and allows you to give generously to the poor and to gospel-centered causes. But at the end of the day, I would seek God's wisdom, not in fear or guilt, but really in just a desire to honor the Lord and reflect the grace that's been extended to you and to me and to all of us in our giving as we respond as generous people. So I'm not giving you a definitive answer on purpose because I don't think there's a legalistic right or wrong approach here. I think at the end of the day, New Testament giving is a response to God's grace. It's freely and joyfully given. It's consistent. It's proportional to our financial status, and it's directed to causes that honor God. And I would say one of those causes that honor God, and perhaps the starting point, should be your local church. But how you decide to break that down in terms of how much you give is between you and the Lord. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That is one of the most clearest answers I've ever gotten. But I do want to ask about that scripture you pulled in Corinthians. I didn't get which was, if you said Corinthians something. And
2 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 7, the Apostle Paul writes, each one must give as he has decided in his heart to give. And then it goes on to say, for God loves a cheerful giver. And I think that clearly should be the primary idea here. And really, as you're in 2 Corinthians, I would look at, go ahead and read chapters 8 and 9. Those are some of the most rich teaching on giving and generosity that you'll find in the New Testament.
Oh, I am so appreciative to you and what you do. I really am. Thank you so very much.
Well, happy to do it, and thank you for being a regular listener, Tanya. And stay on the line. We're going to send you Faithful Steward issue 3 so you can read that article that I mentioned. Lord bless you. Let's go to Illinois. Cynthia, how can I help?
Yes, hello. Thank you for taking my call. My question would be, can an RMD go directly into an estimated pre-tax dollar payment to the government?
Yeah. Yes, you can have federal income taxes withheld directly from your RMD and sent to the IRS. Now, that doesn't make the RMD tax-free. The full RMD is still generally taxable income. You're just simply prepaying some or all of the tax through withholding instead of writing a check later and sending it in with your tax return. So the entire RMD is going to be included in your taxable income, and then any amount withheld is treated as taxes you've already paid for the year. And I would say, to your question, many retirees do find withholding easier than making quarterly estimated payments or waiting and sending, one payment at the end of the year. And I will say that one advantage is that IRA withholdings are treated as though it was paid evenly throughout the year, even if it's withheld late in the year, which can help avoid any underpayment penalties. But yeah, you absolutely can do that.
Oh, okay. So I know on the RMDs or on the IRAs, they are withholding taxes. and probably paying the government. But then I was also told by our tax rep I need to pay, estimated tax payments to the government. So I just thought I do get an RMD back, even though it's getting very complicated. That's okay.
No problem. Let me just say this.
But you did give
your
me a
tax
lot of good
preparer may be exactly right, depending on your situation. RMDs are taxable. If you don't have enough withheld, you may need to pay quarterly estimated payments to avoid that underpayment penalty. But essentially, if you're doing the withholding, you're going to be very close. And if you want to get more precise, you can have your tax preparer do an estimate based on the total income you'll have for the year. Thanks for your call. We'll be right back. Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance Live. It's Friday. That means Jerry Boyer's here. Jerry, a lot to cover today. Let's start with the economy and specifically a reading on inflation that was maybe a bit hotter than expected. We passed 4%. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and even if you take out food and energy, that's called the core inflation, it's still close to 4%, but, a little over 3.5%. So if someone's going to say, well, it's those high energy prices, I'd say, well, you take out the high energy prices, we still have inflation. So we haven't beaten inflation yet. It's as simple as that. And I think
and your view is we shouldn't have any inflation, right?
0 is the right target, I think, for inflation. Actually, for basically most of Western civilization, it was mild deflation. During the time when we kind of emerged from the universal poverty of the ancient world over like a 200 or 300 year period in the United Kingdom and then later in America, basically mildly falling prices and increased standard of living. So I'm fine with a little deflation or 0 inflation. And we've gotten to the point where we've said the Fed's their goal is 2 and a 2.5% inflation. And that seems to be, shooting. I think we can do better, but we're not even there yet, right? We're at over 3.5. So I think the idea, I think partly what happened is under Biden, we got really high inflation, like 10%. So this seems not so bad, but compared to that, but it is bad compared to our history, and it's bad compared to what it should be. And the fact is, after we had that much inflation, probably wouldn't have been a bad idea to have a little deflation, right? Beef prices went up enough that if beef prices went down, I think we'd all be fine with that. So what's caused the inflation? Number one, we produced a tremendous amount of money over the past 15 years. First the Great Recession and then COVID. We've backed that down, but we haven't backed it down. We haven't reversed all of that by any means, and that would be going too far anyway. Number two, the president decided that trade wars are fun and easy to win, and imposed tariffs basically on most of the world. Now, the courts struck down some of those, then he comes forward with other tariffs, and tariffs increase prices. And people seem surprised by that, and I want to say, don't you know what tariffs are? Tariffs are designed to increase prices. Tariff is a price on buying stuff. It's a tax on buying stuff. It's designed to increase prices. If beef from abroad is too cheap, that American beef producers or toy producers or cell phone producers are having trouble competing, well, the government comes along and taxes those imports to drive up the price of them, so that our producers can drive up the price of theirs. So it's not so competitive. It's designed to raise prices. Guess what? It works. It works for raising prices. It doesn't seem to work for strengthening the manufacturing sector, because we've generally lost manufacturing jobs since the trade war.
Interesting. Yeah, Jerry, thanks for that background. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And yeah, the idea that this cumulative inflation that, every year it builds on the prior year, especially when you have that 9-10% year stuck in the middle. That's why we're not feeling any relief, even if we get back to the 2% this year, because it's on top of everything we've experienced the last 5 years. All right, let's
when I go to the
go ahead.
When I go to the store, everything looks strange to me. It looks high. Right. Yeah. And if it didn't go up at all from this month to next month, it would still feel high to me and to most people.
Yes.
we're not used to this price level. We had a huge inflation spike. So after something like that, if we're not shooting for deflation, we should at least shoot for zero inflation. We already are paying a lot more for stuff. We shouldn't be having any increases at all. And the president should not be pushing the Fed to loosen the money supply to goose the economy. So the president increased taxes on trade. That slowed down the economy. We have a war, raising energy prices. That slows down the economy. And then we say, oh, well, let's print more money to speed up the economy. That's like riding the brake pedal and the gas pedal at the same time. What we need to do is just let money remain stable, get rid of the tariffs, get some kind of resolution to the war, and then go on and let the president's otherwise great growth agenda drive things forward. And the blessing of a technological revolution right now, which can be a blessing or a curse depending on how we use it, of what's going on with data centers and really powerful new chips and artificial intelligence and blockchain. I mean, we really could have a golden age, but the golden age is based on following the fundamental principles of the free market, not the kind of new economic nationalism that's replaced the traditional conservative view.
Yeah, well said. Jerry, let's turn our attention to corporate engagement. I know you've been on the road today speaking at the Heritage Foundation. What's happening in this area of proxy voting as it relates to the SEC?
Well, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the chairman is Paul Atkins. He's of the view that shareholder engagement has been used to do a lot of damage in the past, that activists have basically kind of hijacked the system and pushed companies into a culture war and into the wrong side of the culture war. That's me saying that. That's not him. So his answer to that is that we kind of need to shut down a lot of this shareholder engagement. My answer is, well, if one side was doing this for 30 years and the other side comes along and does it for 2 years and you shut it down, that might seem neutral, but it's not neutral. Kind of like if you have a football game and one side just drives and drives and drives and they get to the 1 yard line and they drop the ball, they fumble, and then we pick it up and we run it to the 10-yard line and the NFL says, okay, game over. It's like, well, no. So part of the panel that I was on was talking about how can the Securities and Exchange Commission and other regulators create an environment where shareholder engagement is done with really good proposals, good quality shareholder engagement. There's a lot of really way out there stuff that you see on ballots, stuff from PETA, like, animal rights stuff. And I don't mean like don't mistreat animals. I mean like, tell us about the monkey slave system that's in place. I actually saw a proposal where someone read something online about how companies are importing chimpanzees to serve as slaves in manufacturing, and they want disclosure about this secret monkey chimpanzee slave network. It's like they watch too many Planet of the Apes movies. That does not belong on a corporate ballot, right? So let's have serious people talking about serious topics. And that's what kind of urging the regulators, the federal government, to be in the business of not shutting down shareholder engagement, but encouraging shareholder engagement that's actually relevant to the business.
Yeah. Well, and that would be a tragedy, especially given the effectiveness of what you and others are doing to really engage in a thoughtful way, right?
Yes, and companies are listening. 2/3 of Fortune 500 companies that used to participate with the Human Rights Campaign, which is a very extreme LGBTQ group, they've gotten out. That was inconceivable to people before. And I think we talked about Verizon earlier today, important company that was involved with something called the Trevor Project. So the Trevor Project is aimed at children, young people, junior high, high school, et cetera, and who might have ambivalent feelings about their gender or about their sexual attractions. So it's an LGBTQ group. And they set up a chat room where older men could talk to these young men and young women about their sexuality. I think it's just young men now that I think about it. I don't really. I think stuff could go wrong in that.
You think?
Yeah, I do. And even if maybe the Trevor Project should exist, I have my doubts about it. I see absolutely no reason why a gigantic cell phone company ought to be taking shareholder dollars and putting it into that. I just don't get it. why that was something they were doing. And we engaged on behalf of a Christian ministry with that company, and it was a very constructive dialogue. And they said, "Oh, we're not in any of these groups." And we said, "Looks like you're on the Trevor Project." And they said, "Well, we used to be." And we said, "Trevor Project says you're still involved." A few days later, they were off the website. They're done with the Trevor Project. So that's huge. Now, just think about how bad things got, though. Can you imagine? I mean, we're not talking about Ben and Jerry's, or we're not talking about some like edgy fashion brand or something like that. We're talking about just a cell phone company, right? And they're getting involved with that stuff. But we talked to them and we reasoned with them, and they said, "Okay, we're not in Trevor." And we said, "Great, you need to tell Trevor to take you off the website." And they did, and they took them off the website. So we're seeing stuff like that. Every week we're seeing victories like that. So it's no time to let up. And right now we're preparing for the next season of shareholder proposals. Isaac and Susan and I are working on that list. There's going to be a lot going on, and if the momentum continues, we really have a chance of getting corporate America back to neutral, except if we end the game now, which I think would be a mistake, and I hope we don't.
Well, I'm glad you're speaking out against it, Jerry. Thanks for your time, my friend. We appreciate you.
Thank you. God bless.
All right. Damon in Aurora, I just have a minute left. You have a question about a HELOC versus a home equity loan. Tell me your situation.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So I have offers for both a HELOC and a home equity loan. I need to do some home improvements, about $100,000 worth. And in either case, I'm going to be using all of that money. So whether I get a HELOC or a home equity loan, is there an advantage? By the way, interest rates are about the same. Of course, the HELOC has an APR, or an ARM, I'm sorry. Is there an advantage to one over the other?
Yeah, how long is that adjustable portion?
10 years.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we're probably not going to see rates coming down anytime soon, despite what we thought maybe 6 or 12 months ago, but we probably will in the next decade. So one of the benefits of the HELOC is you do get the ability for that interest rate to come down. When we were in a really low interest rate environment, the home equity loan was a no-brainer because you could lock in that low interest rate. Now that you're going to be up 7% plus, the idea that you could ride that down in the next decade is a good idea. And when you pay it back, it becomes available to you again if you needed it for another home equity project while the line is open. So I would probably say, given where interest rates are, and especially if the project is going to happen in stages, meaning you're not going to need all the money at once, even though you will use it all eventually, and because it becomes available to you as you pay it down again, I'd probably recommend the line of credit personally. Damon, thanks for your call today. We appreciate you being on. Big thanks to Taylor, Tahira, Josh, Dan, and everybody here at Faith Fi making this possible. Faith and Finance Live is a partnership between Moody Radio and Faith Fi. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.